Hello, this is Reverend Bell, and this is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Um, Today, I think I'm going to talk a little Star Trek. I wanted to get a Star Trek background, but I think because of copyright issues, they don't really have a lot of, excuse me, background of Star Trek. So I put this little guy here, which is kind of an alien. So it'll give kind of that feeling of whatever. Um, so for those of you who do not know, Star Trek, I think it was last week, they put out something called Star Trek Universe 765874, I think, um, which is about a 7.5 minute clip, almost no voices, um, of Captain Kirk, William Shatner, and it shows different aspects of his life. Um, I don't really think there's much to be spoiled, but for those of you who haven't seen it and don't even want to risk it, this would be the time to turn this off and come back afterwards. Um, just in case you feel that there is something to be ruined there. I'm not so sure, but yeah, this would be a time to shut this off and check it out, and come back later. But essentially, it is it's up for interpretation. I was watching it and reading about it, and I was surprised that somebody made a comment that I honestly thought I was the only one that recognized it. But it had a lot of the Space Odyssey 2001. Excuse me. It seemed to be a lot of influenced about that, like the in it. I think we're kind of like having the experiences along with Captain Kirk. They're going through kind of his life in a way, different stages of his life, and I guess we are again going through it with him. We don't know any more, any less than he does, and it's done. I think it's done pretty well. Some people go, "Oh, I cried afterwards." I'm not sure it's cry worthy, but it is a touching 7.5 minutes. I would have liked longer, but it did its job. I liked it. Good. Getting tired, I guess. I am a strange Star Trek fan as opposed to the younger Star Trek fan. Just to give a background of me. For those of you who don't know, Star Trek was on for 3 years, mid to late 60s, 66, 66, 67, 68. Might have touched 69, but right around there, 3 seasons. So 66, 67, 68, 69, probably some overlap there. I think about 70 episodes all said and told, maybe 69, something around there. Um, and it was a popular show, but they killed it because they moved it, I think, into the Sunday night gray shift, and nothing in those days survived Sunday night. So um, if you don't like a show and you want it canceled, you put it in Sunday night. So they did that, and eventually it was canceled due to ratings. Little known fact that they didn't know about demographics back then. They didn't. They treated like a viewer as a viewer. They treated a 3-year-old viewing. Oh, good. I apologize. They treated a 3-year-old viewing the same as us in 18 to 35, and of course they're not the same because, well, first of all, the 3-year-old probably doesn't even understand what's going on, but secondly, you're 18 to 35 as your consumer, so you want to actually appeal to them more than the 3-year-old. Had they understood demographics and viewership more, because TV was still in the early days, they would have found out that Star Trek was not bad in the ratings. It was actually one of the top ratings getter, but they didn't have the science down pat then. So they misread it and they canceled it. Shortly thereafter, probably, so that was like around 69, um, probably around 74, 75, they started putting in syndication. And when they did that, something unusual happened. And that was my generation discovered it. Because, I was toddling back in the 60s. I would have been the 3-year-old watching it, I guess. But then we discovered it, when we were old enough to appreciate good science fiction. And suddenly it just went through the roof. We couldn't get enough Star Trek. I remember sitting in the lazy boy in my family, pretending I was Captain Kirk and that was my captain seat. And we all just went nuts. We couldn't get enough. And we brought it back. And they did that movie in 1979. They couldn't bring back the series, so they brought back the movie. And I think the movie they were a little harsh on the movie. It wasn't things blowing up and no real fights and all that kind of stuff. It was more cerebral. It was more of a love affair with Robert Weiss and Star Trek. There's one scene where Captain Kirk comes in, he sees the Enterprise again, and I don't remember how long that scene is, but I want to say that's 5-10 minutes of Kirk making eyes at the Enterprise, just because he's so overwhelmed with being there again. And again, Star Trek made its mark with Kirk wrestling aliens and kicking some ass and blowing things up, and that's not really what the first movie was about. Plus, there was, I don't know if you guys watched the movie, but if you watch it towards the end, McCoy and Spock are standing next to each other. They both have armbands on. I don't forgot what colors they are. I think they might be blue and green or something. And they're wearing one and the other one's wearing the other one. They cut away and they come back, and it seems they switched armbands. So not the best, or technical of detail oriented, but I still like it. I still think there's a lot to be said for it. It's just not a Star Trek movie. Is what it comes down to. I think it's a good science fiction movie, something more like Space Odyssey than Star Trek. But people wanted to see Captain Kirk kicking some Klingon ass, and they didn't get that. So anyway, and I guess there was a lot of people that really got a lot into it. Too much. I mean, I would never go to these shows asking these dumb questions. I was, I watched a lot of it. I mean, I would know things like, I would catch some things. I mean, not going to go crazy writing about them, bothering people. But one thing is, in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan sees Chekhov, and he goes, Mr. Chekhov, I never forget the face. Well, I happen to know immediately that Chekhov, the character, was not in season 1, which Space Seed was. So technically, they never met, which I thought was kind of a big screw up, because when you think Walter Koenig would say, but wait a minute, I wasn't in that episode. But I don't know, whatever, not a big deal. Another one is Where No Man Has Gone Before, which was the second pilot. The Cage was the first one. Then they did Where No Man Has Gone Before, which they kind of slid that into a regular Star Trek episode. Though people that know Star Trek could tell it wasn't your traditional Star Trek. The way the clothes were, I think Spock made a reference to the fact that one of his ancient ancestors was human, and of course it was his mother that was human later on. Just little things like that. And at the end of the show, Gary Mitchell who turned into like a god, made Kirk's tomb, and it said on it James R. Kirk, not James T. Kirk, which I think by canon it's James Tiberius Kirk. But in that episode, which was again, it was a pilot, they didn't really flesh out the character that well, so it was James R. Kirk. Again, not a big deal. What I thought was pretty interesting too is for those of you who remember the Gamesters of Triskelion, I think from season 2, there was an attractive alien that was called Shauna in the episode, played by, her name's Angelique Pettyjohn, and she was a very unique story because she was broke, and she did little bits and pieces. And after she did this, it gave her later on it gave her some notoriety when the Star Trek conventions took off. But at first, no, it didn't really do much for her. So she was very attractive, obviously. It kind of got her in the door to doing things like stripping and pornography. So she used it for that. And, actually she toured stripping. And then a few years later, the convention started to hit. And she made a bundle going around to conventions talking about that episode she was in, which is a very popular episode for a number of reasons. Yeah, she milked that for all it was, and I think that probably helped her out. I don't think she went too much back into the porn business. Unfortunately, I think she died at the age of 48 from cervical cancer, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's an interesting story to come out of the Gamester of Triskelion. I also watched all of The Next Generation. See, you're going to find out, I'm just giving you my background here, is that I'm pretty much the old Trekkie, whatever you want to call it. Watched all The Next Generation. For the most part, liked it. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I loved it very, very much for the most part. I always felt that they started out to go with Picard and Beverly Crusher as lovers, and from the first episode on, I don't believe that ever happened. I think they ended up as just that he was best friends with her husband, but they were at the very beginning, the first couple of seasons. I think there's some definite hints that they were together in the past, but I don't think they ever really played that out. But yeah, I liked that. I saw a good portion of Discovery. I didn't like that very much. I saw some of Enterprise. I wasn't crazy about that. I liked Scott Bakula, but I didn't really like a lot of the supporting cast. I found it kind of aimless. I loved DS9. I thought DS9 was very underrated. I would love to watch that again, as a matter of fact. I think Ben Sisko was outstanding. I thought everyone was outstanding in that. I think of all the Star Trek shows, DS9 is the one that doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. I saw some of Voyager 2, and then when Cass left, I lost interest. She really ended up on Skid Row, huh? I guess I saw a video of her. She's like living in a trailer. She looks like she's in real bad shape. She's not the cutie that I remember, that's for sure. Anyway, so you got kind of a history of what I have in my background. But that wasn't nearly enough for the Star Trek 765874, because there were things that I never knew happened. I don't know when they happened. I know there was a comic book, and they got this OTOY or whatever it's called, the AI create stories, and I know that they have, I don't know, there's other shows that they have. Discovery, maybe. I don't know, and I found myself a little bit frustrated because there were things was not aware of. I thought with my resume, I could pretty much handle all the things happening in Kirk's life, but apparently not. Uh, Apparently, of what I understand, Savick had Spock's baby. Where did that happen? When did that happen? I saw no hint of anything between Savick and Spock. Um, Also, there's somebody who kind of sends Kirk on a trip, and he's called something like Carl the Time Hopper. Huh? Who's that? And why is he important? I mean, if this is a Kirk Spock thing, which I thought it was going to be, then why would we have to have all these characters that were on the peripheral that I don't know about? Now Gary Mitchell is in it, and of course I know that that's played by Gary Lockwood, who's still alive, and I guess actually played the part of Gary Mitchell. Uh, I don't know why J.T. Colt. Now she was an ensign from like the first pilot, and I don't recall her in any other episode. But why she became an integral piece to Star Trek lore is completely beyond me. I just remember I don't forget what they were called, the talons or whatever, those people with the big heads that made you hallucinate or get mirages. I know they brought her as a young alternative to number one to tempt Pike, but I guess they brought her back in the comic books and made a major character for her. Okay, why? I mean, Yeoman Rand was Yeoman Barris even was bigger than those. I don't know. Uh, okay, so JT Colt, I guess, is a big deal. Don't know why. You know what it is? Is I think that they're intertwining things so much. You feel like you have got to see everything, read every comic book, just so you know what's going on. And that's kind of why I started with giving a little bit of my resume. I've devoted quite a lot of my life to watching these shows and, researching them. Not to a point where, it's all I do. I'm not one of these losers. I have a life. But to a point where I can intelligently talk about most of the big shows and characters. Um, I think I should have a better grasp on most of Kirk's life without me scratching my head about Carl the Time Hopper, or who Savik's baby belongs to, or why J.T. Colt is suddenly so important. I don't know. It's like Marvel and Disney. They want you to watch Wanda. They want you to watch Loki, and then you got to go see. Oh, I don't know, whatever. I mean, you got to see just about everything in order to catch up everything in Marvel or Disney. And if God forbid if you forget one, that's why Captain Marvel made $1 billion, because it was in between. Um, um, oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Uh, Infinity War and not Infinity War 2. What do they call it? I don't know, whatever it was. It was in between the two war movies. Boy, getting old. I can't remember that. So yeah, I mean, it was that's why it made $1 billion. So anyway, moving on. Um, Also, there was a lot of CGI bringing back characters that had died. Now, let me explain what I think about Endgame. Took me a second to get it. Okay, Endgame was the second War movie. Infinity War, Endgame. Huh? Okay, got it. There was a lot. There was actually some CGI of Spock. Um, Obviously, they CGI'd a lot of Kirk. because they showed different stages of his life, and they didn't want to obviously show him at whatever he is, 94 now. I'm still can't believe he's alive. So how I feel about that, I think it's okay, provided that it's with the spirit of the actor or the character he was playing. I don't think um, Leonard Nimoy would have a problem if in character Spock was saying things he would say in character. Now, a few years ago, and I say few, it's probably more like 20, they did a commercial, and I think it was Fred Astaire, and he was dancing with a Hoover vacuum cleaner. It may not have been a Hoover, by the way. I'm guessing it was Hoover. It could be something else. But the point was, he was dancing with a vacuum cleaner, and there was an uproar, and I think there should have been, because that would not be something you would expect Fred Astaire to do if he was alive, or at least there's no way that we would know he would do that if he was alive. I mean, it's got nothing in his character or his person would ever say he would be interested in doing a commercial for vacuum cleaners. So that I'm against. But in this way, using CGI to bring back Spock and young Kirk, I think that's fine. And kudos to Robin Curtis for reprising Savick. She was under a lot of pressure because of Kirstie Alley not reprising her role. And Kirstie Alley was pretty famous back in those days. So those were big shoes to fill. Did she fill them? Probably not completely, but she did enough that, I didn't hear many complaints. So yeah. So what else we got here? Let's see. The other thing I wanted to mention is there are a lot of similarities between this and 2001: A Space Odyssey. But one of the interesting facts is that Gary Lockwood, who I mentioned, played Gary Mitchell, actually got the co-star of 2001: A Space Odyssey, probably based on his experience on Star Trek, I would think. I mean, pulling off the whole science fiction, which was pretty new back then. But he didn't do a lot after that, but he actually did co-star in what a lot of people think was the best science fiction movie, if not the best movie of all time, made by Stanley Kubrick. And I've seen it a couple of times. I think it's a little overrated, but I do think it's worth watching. It's a little slow in some areas, and there are some things that you're looking at going, what the hell am I watching? But it's worth a look. I mean, hey, it beats Gladiator 2, which I don't care. The critics are pretty much giving that great reviews, but all the reviews I hear from people that I trust say it's just a poor remake of the original. And I looked at the box office from last weekend, and it's only bringing in like 55 million in US and Canada. I think did more like 261 globally, but I don't think it's going to make its money back. Who knows? We'll see. All right. Well, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, share, and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow. And if I don't talk to you before Thursday, have an outstanding Thanksgiving. And I will talk to you later. This is Reverend Bill signing off.